the first ever VIP podcast, Bell to Bell. No thrills, no messing, 6 3-minute rounds of non-stop chat. I'm Steve Lillis, and with me this week is someone who will be a regular voice and face, top boxing journalist, John Evans. Also on the line is one of the men whose voice and face you might have the mishap of seeing when he's interviewing VIP boxers, Mr. Lee Hogan. John Boy, are you okay?
I'm good, Steve. How are you?
Mate, never been better. Well, could be better, but you know what it is.
Everybody could be better at the moment.
Yeah, of course, mate. We just got to crack on and get on with life. And what about you, Lee, there? You're okay?
I'm great, mate. I'm great. Looking forward to this. First time, so we'll see how it goes, eh?
Brilliant. Well, the concept of this is the three of us have all come up with 2 topics, which we discuss over 180 seconds each topic, each subject. 3 minutes of quick chat, basically, for each round. Steve Wood, who's the chief of VIP, has gone missing on us this week because he had to spend a tenner on a bell that we wanted to get. But I'm going to make sure he has it here next week and I can ring it really loud. But I think John's going to be our timekeeper this week, although he's missing the Dickie bow and all that sort of stuff. But we'll start with you, John. And what topic do you want to discuss first?
Let's start the clock. Liam Williams is a hero the sport needs. All you've got to do these days is click on your TV and you'll see someone of authority talking rubbish, talking around topics, avoiding matters and trying to wheedle the way out of any situation. Liam Williams goes head on into every question you throw at him. You get no rubbish from Liam, no contrived lines, no terrible trash talk. He says what he wants, he accepts what he can get, and he goes about it in the most vicious and violent way possible. And I think people have really latched onto it.
Yeah, people have, but you know what, John, what I don't get, and something, you know, I'll put this out there, because I'm a print journalist, you know, my history is print journalism, which in the past, they would always get onto boxers like Liam Williams, because what sells red top papers is headlines, and Liam Williams gives them. When he says decapitation, he means decapitation. He ain't like David Hay when he's going to fight Klitschko, you know, Vladimir Klitschko in Germany, and he's talking of decapitations and ends up blaming a broken toe. He means it. And I think if he'd been about 10 years earlier, before internet was the main media tool, I think he would have been a mainstream superstar because the red top newspapers would have got onto him. The only one thing I will have about the talk around Liam at the moment is I think a lot of people are disrespecting Demetrius Andrade ahead of their possible fight, but that's for another night. But what you say about Liam is the nastiness about him.
How good was that line he came out with last week where he said, I'm going to knock you out, I'm going to come back for your gold teeth, weigh them in and give myself a little treat. Great lines.
And he meant it. You go back to the Joe Mullender fight when, you know, Joe was gone out and the referee made it, I think it was Bob Williams, correct me if it wasn't you, Bob, he let him get another shot in. And when he was out, he didn't give a monkey. He's there to do damage. And I don't know what the big man Lee there thinks of him.
My new hero. I love him. He's going to be one of the questions, you know, who's your favourite British fighter of now? And he's my favourite British fighter. He's just an absolute animal. And no nonsense, like you said, John. He just gets in there and he destroys people. Just since the 2 losses to Liam Smith, he's just not the same man. And he's an animal.
I think the other thing we can say, if there's one person who's guaranteed to make Demetrius Andrade fight, it's Liam Williams. You know, Demetrius isn't going to have an easy night. He's not going to be able to clown and coast. Liam's going to make him fight for every second for however long that fight lasts. And we'll actually see the best of Demetrius because he's going to be dragged into something that he's never been involved with before. He's had quite a few easy touches in a row. And Liam Williams, we'll see the best of both guys in that fight. And that's the 3 minutes over and done with.
Yeah, he brings one out of Ben.
I'm going to take over now then. I'm going to go. You touched on Liam Williams. I'm going to go on the appeal of Vasil Lomachenko in the fight that 2020 has been waiting for this weekend. I think he's WBA and WBO lightweight champion up against the IBF champion Teofimo Lopez. Absolute magical match. And you can't not love Lopez. He's such a confident kid. He generally thinks this is an easy night. He's not selling the fight. He generally thinks it. But what Loma's another one who's missed that mainstream. You even look at, he's got good viewing figures on ESPN. He's never, I think just under 2 million was the average for the Jose Pedraza fight. I think that's his biggest. Obviously, that would go through the roof not through the weights. He's not going through the weights. He's not going to go and fight Crawford. And, he just, for me, he hasn't made that. Boxing fans adore him. I just can't believe he hasn't become a crossover star that people want to tune in, pay for, $70 to see. And I'm even wondering, long term, would Top Rank prefer a 23-year-old Brooklyn Honduran beating him this weekend? Because if you look at the business Lomachenko does, he gets the lower end of 7 figures for his purses.
I can't understand it, especially considering we live in a world of Twitter and Instagram where people want very fast, short highlights. Lomachenko produces some outstanding, incredible things that you can't believe. Even when I've seen him in the flesh twice, and he does things that I just can't believe. But I think maybe for reason he's not caught on, he's along the same lines. Maybe people want knockouts. Look at the knockout from the UFC this weekend, the spinning back kick. That's probably done more views than any of Vasil Lomachenko's highlights. We appreciate the subtlety and the skill, but maybe people do just want bang for the buck. Maybe they want knockouts, and that's why Lomachenko's just not quite got the imagination.
He's had 10 knockouts in 14 victories. I know. I mean, or 10 stoppages, let's say.
Stoppages.
You could still get the highlight. If that was Sky, if he was British, I'm not saying let's get, Sky get plenty of stick. We boot them sometimes of what they put up, but all in all, they've been, they've made superstars out of boxers. And then you think the next 4 weeks, all you're going to see is 1 minute clips of Dillian White hitting Alexander Povetkin and then the knockout. Imagine if Sky had done, say, a 60-second clip of the damage Lomachenko did to Rocky Martinez in 2016 or 2017. It was his 7th or 8th fight, I think. That would have made him a superstar itself. I just don't get how he isn't a mainstream superstar. It buggers me.
Time up.
Go on,
my turn now. Well, the thing about this, John and Steve, we want other people to start making comments, on the videos and give their views and their opinions on what these subjects.
I'm going to say that again.
We can't finish any of these conversations that we're having in 3 minutes, but hopefully we can get a few people talking and interacting with us, because we want to know what they think as well, don't we?
All right, I'll have to start the timer out again now, Lee.
Oh, sorry, mate. Well, mine is I want to know why there's not a weight difference. Why there's not a super light heavyweight or a super cruiserweight, because the jump from light heavyweight to cruiserweight is just too much. I think it's £24. It's ridiculous. I think there needs to be a catch weight between them. We have it in every other division, so why not in the slightly heavier weights?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of this new sort of super cruiser, junior heavyweight, whatever they want to call it. But between light heavyweight and cruiser, it has to happen. That bring in the stick at 175 and make that limit 13.8, because I just think
which is the old cruiserweight limit.
Yeah, the cruiserweight.
Which is the old cruiserweight, isn't it? 13.8.
I'd have a division in between light heavyweight and cruiser, maybe 13.5 or something. I would have that. I'm not a fan of this junior heavyweight up above cruiserweight one at all. I mean, that would have robbed us of a lot of great fighters and great matchups. I mean, if you had, say, a 15 stone, 7 pound division, where would Wilder have boxed? We would never have seen Evander Holyfield in so many classic wars. Mike Tyson was 15.5 stone early doors. David Tua he was an exciting fight. He only become big when he bolts up mysteriously in the latter, the second half of his career. But
we are living in an age of super heavyweights now, where realistically, if you're not 17 stone plus, you're probably not going to get an opportunity. I know you've just mentioned Deontay Wilder at 15.5 stone. Yes, but he's a one-off at present. In this modern day era, he's a one-off. So I believe there's definitely a a category that needs to put between light heavyweight and the cruiserweight.
I don't think we need another category. I could understand you putting the cruiserweight limit back down to 190 where it used to be before they moved it up to £200. I could understand that, but I'm of the opinion if it's not broke, don't fix it. That's been the divisions for a long time. We complain about too many world title belts.
But we complain about the super middleweight.
Yeah, but we've never
had about super middleweight, light middleweight when they all came in. But now they're accepted.
Super middleweight come in more than, was it around 87, 88 when Murray Sutherland fought for the IBF were the first. That we're talking 30 odd years ago, a generation ago. But the one thing they mustn't bring up is this junior heavyweight division that the WBC
weakened too.
Tony Bellew to sort of champion. That would be terrible. It would rob us of good fights, and very good 16-stone fighters would be boiling down to 15.5 stone. It robs us of
weakened two divisions.
Well, yeah, I must admit, I said you can't devalue the heavyweight division.
3 minutes late.
All right. Who's next?
Well, I think that women's boxing has made great strides over the last few months. We're finally getting some characters coming through. We've had even matches. A couple of them have really caught on and caught the imagination. But I think they're missing a major trick by focusing everything on world titles. Everything's got to have this world championship level. We're getting girls who've had 3, 4, 5, 6 fights fighting for world titles. It's getting the girls' attention. It's getting them more money than they've ever earned. And it's getting them a higher profile fights than they've ever had. But I think they're missing a big trick by not campaigning for domestic titles and regional titles. The girls have been asking for recognition and to be treated equally for as long as I can remember. And I think this is a perfect opportunity to introduce English titles, British titles, European titles. Commonwealth titles are there, but they're not regularly fought for. And I think some of the matches that are getting talked about now as world title fights are perfect British title fights.
Yeah.
It'd help us establish some rankings. It'd bring some order to it all, and it'd create a pathway for all these new girls who are turning over. Rather than looking short term, I think this is the time to look long term for women's boxing.
Well, I think it's looking short. I think you're referring to the Ebony Bridges Rachel Ball match, where there's nothing wrong with the match, but it's just the title. But I think they're not. You know what? I'll look at broadcasters, promoters here that. They're looking at it short term because in the current climate, TV money's been cut. The women's world title fights can be made easily. It suits the broadcaster to have a world title. They're not catering for me, you and Lee, the boxing fan. Sky are catering for the casual sports fan who see a world title. They're cheap world titles, then they're so easy to make in this current climate. And I think that's why they're thinking short term. And I think that down the road in 9-10 months, I don't think it will be having the impact it is now. Maybe girls like Terry Harper, Katie Taylor and Rachel Ball, who got a lot of recognition the other week, will still be getting noticed. I think it could easily become forgotten when the audiences are back in. And I think the big acid test on the 14th of November, when Eddie's doing the women's fight, is what it gets viewing figures. If gets big viewing figures on Sky, they mean business. If it doesn't work, let's see if it's really thought out. But I'm very sceptical that this surge is going to continue once we get crowds back.
Can't argue with that. John, you got the next question? Or time to...
No, I agree. I'll just finish off. If they don't do it now, I don't see the incentive for anybody to fight for anything other than a world title.
Yeah, and also the thing was, I mean, you go back to Commonwealth British, and you're spot on, John. But do these Commonwealth when Stacey Coates? I've got to shut up.
Got to shut up.
Right, my next one is the one that got talked about more than the boxing the weekend. Buntsgate. Wow, I've never seen such a reaction on Twitter. The next day there was LL Cool J, Lenny Henry, Ricky Gervais, whatever he's called, the guy from The Office. I always think, I forget his name all the time. Don't watch a lot of telly. And they're going on about this thing, and the big problem there was Paul Dempsey's hand over it was just so clumsy, and you know, through to Buncey, and Buncey is more qualified to talk about black boxers than 99% of people in Britain. He's been around them since 1989. He knows them all from the 70s. He was more qualified to talk from anyone. The big mistake was the handover and Hay not saying as much. You know, Hay could have gone into some sort of detail about his upbringing as a mixed race kid in South London. And it seems that, you know, Buncey's the one that's been given, shall we say, the hospital pass for this. You know, the stick he's got, absolutely ridiculous. I mean, if it was, look, people say you can't compare it, but if you look something like in rugby union, the British Lions who go to Australia and New Zealand every 2 or 4 years, there's hardly a black player on there. But would someone complain if a black actor narrated a documentary on them and not a rugby player, not one of the great Lions from the 70s or 80s? No. And I just think it's got totally, you know, it's the total, you know, what it is, this whole thing, the whole mock outrage of social media, we saw at its worst over the weekend.
Yeah, there were people jumped. I know Buncey's always been great to me. You've obviously worked with Steve.
I'm a friend of mine. I know Buncey. He's a very close friend of mine.
He's a big daddy. Buncey doesn't need us sticking up for him, does he? But a lot of people have polarising views of him, and they just used it as an excuse to jump on him. And rather than concentrate on the terrible handover, Paul Dempsey's probably second worst moment. If you've never seen it, look up the YouTube clip of him with Chris Eubank in the Sky studio. It's outstanding. But instead of concentrating on that, we focused on Buncey, and I hate the trawling through the past, dragging up video clips, trying to score easy points. I thought it was pathetic.
Yeah, because it wasn't nothing to do with what Buncey said. It was, as you said, the handover. So how can someone get stick for speaking good words? It was just that the handover was terrible. And you all thought he was going to move to David Hay because he was sat next to him.
You know what? Before the outrage, you know what Buncey was kicking himself over. It was a brilliant tribute to the great black middleweights, and belongs in, you know, with black history. It was superb. Buncey was kicking himself when he switched over because he never mentioned Neville Brown.
That's it, Steve. Go on, final topic, Lee.
I like this new era of Journeymen. And I'd be wrong to call some of them Journeymen, but a lot of fighters have been brought onto these shows. We're giving real hard tests to some of these up-and-coming prospects. And I think one of the ones that put the biggest smile on my face over this, you know, lockdown and behind closed door shows was Ed Harrison, a Kieran Farrell lad. He beat a kid called Bilal Ali.
Yeah.
And it was just brilliant. And we've seen it again at the weekend. I know he's not a journeyman, but, you know, he was brought in to lose. And Luke Jones turned over an Asian.
Fuzzardine, was it?
Yeah,
Fuzzardine.
But I'm loving it. We've had a kid on our show numerous occasions, a kid called Ben Fields. Ben started on the road as a journeyman. He just won in the lockdown. I think it was in September. He won the Central Area title. And I think in his last 8 fights, he's won 6, drawn 1, and lost 1 to Lee Appleyard. And 5 of those 6 wins are all kids with all unbeaten records. And not just 1 or 2-0, but 7, 8, 9, 10-0. I love it. I think the thing that's going to make boxing good going forward is this new brand of young kids coming through who have come from nowhere. They've not come from an amateur background. They've probably come from white collar, and they just want to give it a go. And they're turning up and causing upsets all over the place.
I just think with the Journeymen now, I mean, you know, it's great they're causing their upset, but what I do think is going to happen when boxing gets back to normal, and a couple of them, as you say, you know, the guy the other night, not a journeyman, Scott Lawton's kids are always good, always come to fight. They remind me a little bit of when Phil Martin, before he got going, all these kids come to fight. But yeah. I think the problem we have with Journeyman going, a lot of the guys who they would normally fight to keep alive as such, they're not going to be about when this lockdown ends. It's going to be harder for the Journeyman, not just to get on to even get out, because I think a lot of these kids that are 9-0 who keep going because of ticket sales aren't going to be about anymore.
Yeah. I just want to say, though, that's going to be good for boxing, though, because that's going to make for more quality fights. Steve said it himself, you know, Steve Wood, my boss. he said that he's determined to make those harder fights when necessary. We've done it with Akeem Fias. You know, we've matched him hard all the way through. I mean, his 6th fight he gets in with Kane Baker, you know, 13-6. You know, it's going to have to happen, isn't it? You know, you're going to have to prove yourself now. And whether you are a ticket seller or not, I don't know. I just think it's going to be good. I'm excited for when our shows come back now because of...
It's the end of it, Lee. Cutting you off.
Hey, Lee's been silent. The only man that can silence Lee Hogan. No, well, cheers, fellas. That was a bit of fun. And it's, look, something a little bit different because, you know, a lot of the pods are the same and we're just trying something different. Look out for the VIP media social media accounts over the next few days, everybody. And we want you to give your opinions to what we were cut off from saying and what we were saying and get you involved. And perhaps we can, you know, before we start our 6 rounds next week, we can have a quick couple minutes discussing what people on social media say. Thanks, John. Thanks, Lee. Thanks for everyone for being part of Bell to Bell and see you next week.